Welcome back to another episode of 666 Seconds of Murder. That means each one of these videos is less than 666 seconds or 11 minutes and 6 seconds. So let's not waste a minute here. Let's get right to it, like always. Talking about the Idaho 4 case and some weird stuff going on with these phones. You could say what you want about this, but I'm still on this. And we're going to talk about it. You could see there that image on the screen. That's what I'm going to be talking about in this video. It's important to know, though, with these videos, these are for informational purposes only. I'm not saying anybody's guilty of anything. These are just opinions and speculation. Everything I say is alleged. Now, I did a video 3-4 weeks ago on my speculation regarding the concept that these crimes may have been live streamed. Now, there were some that I thought, that probably thought I was nuts, okay? And I stood firm. I put out a second video to clarify some things that I said. I originally questioned why there were 400 potential witnesses for the defense, and if some of that group could have been people watching it on a live stream. Now, I still believe that happened. I really do. But I hadn't really seen much of anything from the creators, at least that I follow here on YouTube. I know that Harsh made a reference to both of my videos and videos he did. He did seem to think that there was certainly a possibility, but he was hung up, as others were too, about the issue of it being pay-per-view. But, how else do you explain the flurry of Venmo payments that night and the day before? Very, very, very strange, okay? And all these Venmo payments going on right before that happened, very suspicious to me. Now, the most ominous of the Venmo payments was the one from Molly Gray to Liz Katovich the day before the crimes occurred. And the memo on the payment said 3:30 a.m. Now, that is incredibly weird. It makes me wonder, was that some sort of code and a way of communicating about these crimes to each other? Was Molly predicting what time things were going to happen, kind of like picking a square for a Super Bowl score? Or was she telling Liz to be somewhere at that time? The possibilities are obviously endless. Then I watched a video by Huda London, and I will admit I did not care for her style the first time I watched a video of hers. But when it came to this subject, I perked up and listened, and she seems to agree with me about the live streaming. Now, many of the points I raised about it were also brought up by Huda. And I'll link to her video in the description so you can watch it for yourself, as she may not be for everyone, but neither am I. I mean, there's no creator that's for everyone. That's why there's a bunch of us. So you want to check it out, go for it. But it's interesting content. And Bubbly Waters touched on some of this as well. If you look at the Banfield body cam video, you can see Saeed looking at his phone during the brief interaction that he had with the police. But zoomed in, there appear to be two feeds split down the center, top and bottom on his phone. And on the top, and that's the one I told you about on the thumbnail, on the top, you can clearly see what appears to be a female sitting up in a bed with her back up against the wall or maybe a backboard. She appears to have long blonde hair. This is very possibly Kaylee, as it was described by her mother in a recent interview. Now, the bottom image, to me, and Huda pointed this out as well, looks like a female with a mask on. She thinks it could be Dylan. I'm not really sure, but I can't tell. But what we do know is that 4chan post did say that there was a woman in that group that came over from the fraternity house. So I don't know. Now, I've also watched some more of that grub truck video, which is very fascinating. And most of us have seen it while Kaylee and Maddie are there. But if you watch it beyond that, it gets even weirder, okay? I'm planning on doing a true crime deep cuts on this. You guys asked for it, so I'm going to do it. And there's a lot of stuff going on there at the grub truck. Now, there appears to be multiple people watching something on their phones that's beyond like the average Snapchat, TikTok stuff, okay? There seems to be something that has their attention in a big way. Now, that big guy down there at the grub truck, Joe Vito, he's also watching something on his phone. And from the shot, when Huda zoomed into it, you can see something on his phone, but it's not nearly as clear as the image you see on Saeed's phone. But it does appear to be something similar to that. And if my hunch is right, I believe that Joe Vito was watching a live stream of what happened to Xana and Ethan. Now, to add to that disturbing possibility is the fact that a small group of sorority sisters that were there at the grub truck, and that includes Molly Gray and Liz Katovich, were huddled around phones and chanting Xana repeatedly. I mean, it is shocking, to be completely honest, when we know what's probably going on right then. Even if that was just some sort of fight club thing, that's still a little disturbing, okay? Now, when I watch this, I need to add Lord of the Flies to my description of this place, because these kids are like in this herd mentality, just like in Lord of the Flies, and they start doing some dark stuff. They're in these fraternities and sororities, and I liken them to a cult that brainwashes their members. I don't think there's much difference. To think these rich kids would have been fascinated by a sort of modern day gladiator fight is pretty messed up. And if they knew what the outcome was going to be on that night, it's even more disgusting than it was before. Now, my wife made a comment when we were watching it and questioned why no one from that group that was chanting Xana's name kind of would walk away or, recoil from it. Instead, they were all locked in and chanting. It was really, really weird. And, she noted that if it appears, if it is what it appears to be, that this whole university is made up of some really sick and sadistic people. I mean, I would have to agree with that. I mean, that's just weird. I mean, I could certainly see a few bad apples being all drawn to something wacky like that. But when you've got hundreds of college students in the Greek life there at U of I, that's really abhorrent. I mean, it's horrible. Now, if I had kids in college right now, I'd be scared to death. Okay. And I'm sure this sort of crap happens all over the place. But right now, the microscope is on Moscow, and it's looking darker and darker by the minute. Now, beyond what I've seen and heard in the video that I mentioned, I have no idea if any of that, is a live stream of the events. I mean, we don't know. But if you believe like I do that Xana and Ethan were attacked sometime around 2 a.m., that would jive with the people at the grub truck wanting, chanting Xana's name and watching something that appeared to be something like a sporting event by the way they were cheering and yelling. They could have, contained it all in Xana's room. So with the door closed, Kaylee and Maddie would have probably just assumed they were in bed sleeping. The attackers could have hid in that room until they got word that that third floor light was off. And if you believe that 4chan post said that that's when things kicked off and that once you could see that bedroom light from Sigma Chi. The live stream happening around 3 a.m. at the Banfield makes sense with what I believe is the second part of the atrocities. I think they started just after that last call to Jack Takor at 2:52, and then the 4 people running from the house toward Sigma Chi on the Banfield at 3:12 a.m. was the end of it. And there's about your 19 minutes, just like the 4chan post said. I assume that there were several and that the 3 boys spotted by the cops could have possibly been part of this crew as well. I mean, one of them, ironically, at the time was facing charges involving a firearm with a stepfather, an unaliving, if you will. So can this one get any stranger? I mean, you have to choose to believe that this was live streamed and the Venmo payments were just made for that reason, making it a pay-per-view. You can believe that, or you could decide it's just taking it way too far. But honestly, with all you've heard about this case, can you comfortably make that statement? As frightening as the realization is, I firmly believe that the groupthink going on here, coupled with heavy alcohol consumption and likely other intoxicants, makes this a very realistic scenario to me. We live in an age where the most vile things don't make the average person cringe, but they rather seek it out. I think these were rich kids that were never told no a day in their life. I don't think they have the capacity to look at human life as precious and not act like it's just a video game and that the next day everybody's going to wake up like nothing ever happened. I just wonder which of them will be the first to crack under the weight of the guilt from those intense nightmares that just don't stop. And if they were involved, I hope it's a horrible existence, something that daddy's money can't buy you out of. So let me know what you guys think down below. Love to hear your comments. I want to thank my friends at the Horns High Club. You guys are awesome. I appreciate that support very much. And I appreciate all of you that watch these videos. And we'll see you next time for another episode of 666 Seconds of Murder.